Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Unqualified podcast, the podcast where two lifelong fans try to make sense of their teams and usually fail at it. I'm Pat, joined as always by Brendan. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. We got the Miami Hurricanes hat going, really
I like it.
representing college football at where we are at this point in time, draft season. So all good to go.
Just a quick note, guys, if you're not following us on Instagram, check us out at the UQ podcast. We're also on Apple and Spotify where you can catch full episodes of the Unqualified. But yeah, the draft wrapped up this weekend in Pittsburgh. Do you like the fact that they're doing, they're changing up the venue every year?
I think the best part I like about the draft and the changing of the venue is sometimes when you get the divisional opponents come up and you get the former players come up, big trust. Those are my favorite moments. And I think the best clip of the draft was definitely Ingram and his moment of just kind of nudging the Steeler fans a little bit. That to me is what I enjoyed the most. But yeah, I have no issue with it. I think it's just it's a cool concept, different way to draw in people, and a better way to kind of engage each of the fan bases in the markets. I think the only challenge is outdoors, April, especially when you're doing an event or a venue, outdoor venue in the northern part of the US, gets a little dicey, I think, weather-wise. But outside of that, it's pretty cool to me.
It's funny because my fiance always asks me, like, why do they always boo Goodell? Why? And now just looks like obviously he's having fun with it, but it's just so funny.
To your point, I think Adele now takes it in stride and accepts it for what it is. Gosh, I forget what year this goes back to, though. It's been a
Yeah.
good while since he's been
Yeah.
getting those boos.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Probably
no,
over a
good.
decade, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah, but good for him that he could joke about it, and I'm sure when you're getting paid like 30-40 million dollars a year, you could live with somebody booing you. Who cares?
Exactly.
I wouldn't care.
Exactly.
You can boo me all you want for 30-40 million a year. You
So
know?
we've got optimism, we've got panic, and we've got whatever the Mets are doing right now. So we have it all, really.
Yeah.
Let's get into my football team first because of course we won the draft. We won the offseason. Per usual. The Jets love making the headlines in the offseason, usually in a good way. And then when the season rolls around, that's when everything kind of goes to shit. But I'm going to keep it positive, pal. Okay. I am going to keep it
You should.
positive. Yeah. I
That was a
feel,
strong first round. Be
yeah, even
happy.
the first four picks, David Bailey, you get the edge rusher that they desperately needed near at the bottom of the league in sacks last year. Then you get the freak tight end in Kenyon Sadiq in the middle of the first round, who's going to be a great weapon for Geno this year. I think, Frank Reich, new offensive coordinator, is hopefully going to do some creative things with him. And then they got who they drafted last year, Mason Taylor, the other tight end. So I think that could be a really good 1-2 combo. And then they trade back into the first round at the end and get Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana,
Yep.
who, there's comps I've read like Jets fans comping him to Lavernius Coles, which I'll take that, man. Coles was a very productive receiver, great yak guy. So I'm really happy with it. And then to start the second round, they get Pons, the corner
Yep.
from Indiana. So I do like the fact that you're getting Cooper and Pons, two guys from coming off, national championships, winning programs. Like I feel good about that, and infusing that into the building. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of parsing at the top of the draft with Bailey versus Reese. And, I think overall Jets fans were split on that. A lot of them wanted Reese because of his versatility and what he can do. You can drop him back into coverage. You can do a lot of different things with him. But I feel like at the end of the day, they did what was best for them,
Yeah.
and they really needed a guy that can get to the quarterback.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed. The interesting thing is now, and it couldn't work out any better, right? Like you have Bailey versus Reese in the New York market, and you're going to see how it plays out. And I hope for really both the players' sake, they turn out for what they are. It's like top 5 draft picks. But yeah, it's the New York sports irony to see them go one-on-one in the market. But I understand. I understand the Jets feeling more comfortable with Bailey. Again, I do like the way Reese fits into the Giants' defensive front. It almost feels a little bit like 2011-ish when you think about what the Giants have up front, getting after the quarterback. Which to me, Yeah, I mean, look, it's ideal, right? The Giants made those two Super Bowl runs in '07 and 11 just based on their ability to really get after the quarterback and be disruptive. And obviously they did against Tom, right? So I kind of like that for the Giants. But ultimately, to your point, with the Jets first round, to me, getting that what is hopefully going to be that defensive stud, throwing a couple, really talented offensive rookies set you up for, to me, your next year going into it. Do you get like Arch? Do you get Dante Moore? You say, I'm already projecting Geno to be Geno. So not to get too far ahead of myself, but at the end of the day, I think the last time we talked about this, I think they just needed to do what they did this past weekend, get solid players coming in, start to get some of those character fits. That's how you're going to change a culture. That's how you're going to rebuild an organization, is having
Ah,
the right people.
the culture word.
Yeah.
Listen, I agree with you. I just think it's such a word that's just thrown around so much. Like, but it's true. Is I can't deny that, it is a real thing. But like, I feel like to change it, you have to start to win. You know what I mean? Like the culture can be like, does it, come go hand in hand? Like, could you have a good culture and not win games? Like, I feel like ultimately you just got to learn how to win games. And let me say something about
Yeah.
Gino. I'm not a Gino. I'm not a Gino
If there's a
truther.
defense coming here, I'm going to laugh, but go ahead.
All I'm gonna say is I feel like he's gonna have a better year than people think. Now, I'm not saying Pro Bowl, playoffs, none of that. I think for me, just as a Jets fan here, I'm not speaking for the rest of the fan base. All I want to see is a team that when you get around Thanksgiving, you're rolling into December, you know how the networks put up the graphics in the hunt with the playoff picture? That's all. I just want to see the Jets in the graphic, in the hunt. Give me meaningful football in December and in November for that matter. I haven't had it for so long. So
Yeah.
that's really what I'm looking for. I think Gino, yeah, he's a bridge. He's a bridge quarterback till we find our guy. But I just think he's getting a lot of shit. And I just feel like, he had some decent years with Seattle and they're setting him up to succeed here. I think with the weapons and everything, bringing in Frank Reich, I think he's going to have a good chance to succeed, especially with an O-line that's young and really, I think, becoming the strength of the team in a way. So that's all I had to say about
Fair. Okay, couple quick points. I'll come back. This one serious question. Over under Cade Klubnik starts in 2026.
it.
That's one question.
I got something to say about him too, but go ahead. Yeah.
And then the second one, I get it. Culture, I think culture at the size of what an NFL organization is extremely important, right? There are just too many players, add in the coaches, add in more or less the administrative general management team above that is doing X, Y, and Z throughout the course of the year. And you have to have good character people in a football locker room. You need that to be at the core of it. Because, right, we could say winning, it's like a chicken and egg argument with the culture. But realistically, if you could look at the Mets, are you going to tell me that, Mets culture did impact this season at all? I think it's kind of hard
100%.
to say
Yeah.
that. So, like in the football setting, I think it's, maybe a little bit more important than some of the other sports because the nature of the game and how each position relies on another position and the commitment you have to have that the person next to you is going to go all out and be as productive as they possibly can be. Again, I think it's a step in the right direction. I think getting some of these people, I would, if I'm a Jets fan, I would feel really good about who they're bringing in.
Even the free
As
agents with Demario Davis and Minka
yeah,
Fitzpatrick
yep.
coming into that defensive meting room, like hopefully that's going
It's
to pay
going to look
dividends. Yeah.
it's going to look a lot different. I think if I'm in your position, and and again, like it's still the NFL, and right, the quarterback position dictates so much of what your success is going to be. Not that you couldn't win with a mid-tier quarterback or somebody middle of the pack. You definitely could in the NFL, but can you win with somebody outside of the top 15 really is the challenge. Sure, they could keep you competitive. Sure, they could keep you in that graphic where you're in the hunt. I think as a Jets fan, if I were a Jets fan, the one piece I would be conflicted about is understanding where you are because you just want to see it at this point because it's been way too long. But then knowing the prospects that are coming for 2027, whether it's the quarterback position, wide receiver, there's going to be some dynamic pieces and where, that to me I get it. It's a tough road, but for me, I would want to be able to secure that quarterback if I possibly can. And I think if I'm a Jets fan, I'm hoping Gino looks like he did the first go around for you guys, but I get it. I know
I
winning
know.
makes you feel a lot better.
It does, and the reason, like, I'm not, like, in that boat, like, wanting them to not do great so they have a good better draft pick next year is because they have a lot of draft capital next year
Yeah,
to move
sure.
up if they want to. So that's kind of like the saving grace there. But I just feel like for this coach, you gotta show something. You gotta be in the hunt. You know, you can't have another season where they started 0-7 last year. Like that it can't happen again if he's gonna keep his job. You gotta be playing meaningful games down the stretch. I'm not saying they're gonna make the playoffs or they need, it's a mandate to make the playoffs, but the coach has to show something. They need to win some games this year to get in the good graces of the fan base and really build that confidence with the players. Like you said, trying to build the culture. Like at some point, you got to start winning some games.
So do you still think what you saw last year through those games and just the effort from the team itself, do you think he's the right guy for your organization to move it forward? Especially to your point, great draft picks this year. You got all the draft capital next year. Do you feel like you can entrust him with all that?
It's really hard to say, man. It really is. Like you said it a couple episodes ago. Like who's going to be the next Jets head coach after Glenn gets fired mid-season?
Yeah.
So, I mean, could I see that happening? 100%. Yeah. But I think I really want to truly judge him now. Like he's starting to get his guys in here. Okay. So, how is this team going to look? Obviously, you don't have the franchise quarterback yet. And that's what doomed Salah and Douglas. They couldn't get it right with the quarterback. They whiffed on Zach Wilson. Don't get me started. Yeah. So, I think it's TBD with Aaron Glenn, really. Like, I want him to succeed so bad. I loved him as a player and, he's got that energy. He's just, he's a Jet through and through. He wanted to come here. So it's like I want him to do well, but I don't have my confidence level is not high at this moment. Maybe 4 or 5 games into the season, they look like a competitive team. They're 2-2, whatever. I might change my tune, but I got to see it. I got to see it.
Yeah. No, I get that part. And I think, not being a Jet fan, I think that disconnect of, Aaron Glenn, like from my perspective, it'd be like, well, I guess Tony Baselli is in the front office helping us build this organization at this point. But, I know it's a little bit different when it's the coach on the field. And if we, for the sake of it, had like Mark Brunell out there, head
Yeah.
coaching, like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I love Mark when he played with us and, of course I would want him to succeed and you really want that more than anything. I mean, going back to those teams of like the late nineties, really Jags were more of an offensive team. So, right, like kind of similar to Giants were, or excuse me, Jets were built around a little bit more around defense, and Jags were built more around offense in the late '90s. So yeah, I think like the Bosellis, the Mark Brunells, Jimmy Smith, Keenan McCardell, like in that realm of those guys were really the face of that organization. Yeah, and if I had one of those guys coming up, and I would be torn if I were you. So I get that from a Jets perspective. And it still is at a fragile time, just in the fact that you're trying to dig out of this hole and you have all these picks and you seemingly are going to go in the right direction. And it's such a gamble on who you have in charge at times. And he doesn't have the same type of pedigree like when you brought in Parcells or some of these other coaches, nor is he thought of, right? Of course, he's a defensive guy. So it's not like you're getting one of the McVays or offensive minded coach, like what we have in Jacksonville, just saying. So yeah, no, I get that part for you. And, as much as they kind of pick on you for being a Jets fan and your devotion to Fireman Ed, I'd say, I would feel at least a little bit more optimistic that you're laying a foundation. Yes.
Yeah. Going back to what you said about the Giants, that's going to be interesting, especially in this New York market. Like every week, you're going to see the comparisons. I can just see it like Reese starting off as a beast and getting a bunch of sacks early on, and Bailey's kind of quiet, maybe. And it's like, here we go again.
You can't really do that as a Jets fan, right? Like you can't let that pessimism kind of settle in.
It's
I
hard.
think either one ended up on the Giants was always going to be for their position to me in a better overall setup, just because the Giants defensive line is to me one of their right now, right, is one of their strengths. Now they've added to it again, trying to call back to those Super Bowl years. You switch any one of them out, they're going to be set up for success to be a part of the Giants defensive line, where I think there's probably a little bit more work cut out for, for the Jets pick, or now I guess Bailey in this situation.
No, I mean, you're right there. It's a good point. From an infrastructure perspective, Reese is probably set up better to succeed and be more productive, at least early. I'm not saying that David Bailey is going to be a bust. Actually, again, going back to like Jets fans comps, I've seen like John Abraham, which he was a solid pass rusher. He was hurt a lot. I'll say that. He missed some big games and big moments, but I mean, he was part of that 2000 draft where we had the 4 first-round picks: Sean Ellis, John Abraham, Chad Pennington, and Anthony Becht. We got an extra one from the Belichick fiasco. We got another one from the Keyshawn Johnson trade. Yeah, that was a solid draft. And Parcells actually ran that draft because he had retired as coach, and then he went into the front office for 1 year. But speaking of Parcells, you know how much I love Parcells. You mentioned Cade Klubnik before. Now,
Yes, I did.
Parcells has 7 rules for drafting quarterbacks.
Yep.
And let's go through them with Klubnik, shall we?
Sure. Let's do it.
Number 1, be a senior. Okay, he checked the box there. Graduate from college, number 2. Okay, so he's 2 for 2.
2 for 2.
Be a 3-year starter. He was 3 for 3. Start at least 30 games. Got to go back and look at the actual numbers, but he did that. Win at least 23. I believe he won 26 during his career. The 6th qualification is complete at least 60% of your passes. He did that. And maintain a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. So what does it all mean?
I mean, it sounds like you got the next Phil Simms.
Listen, you asked me before, over-under games before he starts a game this season.
Well, I was saying over-under in number of starts for
Number of
Cade
starts.
this year.
Okay.
Yeah, so not time when he comes in yet, but like how many starts? I think, technically I think you should put a hook on it, right? Like a half, but just say, like in my head, like if he had over-under, say like 2.5 starts, the over-under, if we set it there, I think there's a good chance that, you're going to get to December and it'd be worth seeing what you had in Cade. And that's why I think it'll be over. Obviously, I'm not bullish on Geno and where things may pan out with Aaron Glenn as we get into next year. So to me, I think it's over, because you're going to be in that position where you're going to have to see, who is this guy versus, potentially what is coming out, in the following April.
Now, here's the thing. Like, I see a lot of fans online, because they traded up, I believe, 14 spots to pick him. So it's like, it's in the 4th round. Okay. But we don't know what any of these guys are going to be. My point is, like, don't get crazy about like trading up and like giving up a 5th or a 6th rounder. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so in the weeds. Like, you have no idea. He could turn out to be your long-term backup potentially,
Yeah.
It's possible.
I to your point, right? Like I know the air, and yeah, and I'm on the same page. I mean, I grew up watching Bill, with the Giants, and I think we understood what he was and the things he could do in terms of turning a football team around. I can agree with some of those pieces. I guess he's the opposite of Ty Simpson for sure. So with
How
that
about
being
that?
said,
My gosh, did you see
God.
McVay?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I felt like if they wanted him in the 2nd round, they could have done that. But like, that was your chance to go get another dynamic player, what is still a very, very good Rams football team,
Yeah.
right? And still one that would be considered, a top end of the NFC as we go into next year. And it's just like,
The window's still open, and Stafford maybe has a couple years left.
or even if you just wanted to trade the pick and just get a haul for, because 13 is still a very solid pick. And what was ultimately, at least again, to your point, we don't know what anybody's going to be, but it's seemingly the sentiment across the draft experts is that, this was a weaker draft and next year's is going to be a dynamic draft. However you look at it, I don't know if anybody was really going to be taking high in the top 20. But, again, nonetheless, that part I felt for McVay, and I get it, but yeah, that one was a rough one.
It's
Yeah.
hard to believe, like, there would be a disconnect there with a guy like McVay, who's such a great young football mind, like, he's had so much success and, like, to not really be on the same page with the GM, it's kinda hard to believe.
Yes, yes, I agree with that. But, for the most part, right, these NFL head coaching jobs, no matter what, they run their course, right? The relationship runs its course. Not to say it's we're at the truly at the end days of McVay maybe coaching the Rams, just because, like, right, if you don't have somebody like a Matthew Stafford keeping you competitive, there's some challenges, right? People age out, trying to find the talent to backfill. I think McVay and team have done a great job of, riding out their window, from the Super Bowl runs that they've had. But yeah, maybe that's a little bit of what you're seeing. It's like that early indicator of, I'm not saying, of course, this year coming up, but if he's no longer there in 2 years, like, am I surprised? No. Do they sometimes need a fresh start? Yeah, that's going to happen. So I think, if anything, I think it was more in line with that than anything else. It's getting a little rocky, and it'd be time for a change in a season or so.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I mean, he would be a hot commodity if he ever got on the market for sure as
Yeah,
head
for
coach.
sure,
Like,
for sure.
he wouldn't last very long before he was scooped up by someone. So overall, like I said, happy with the Jets draft. They filled some needs in the back end of the draft with a D tackle. They got another defensive back. They got an O lineman, actually from the U. They picked up a guy
Yes.
from the U. Yes. So yeah, I mean it's it's hard not to feel positive about it. So I'm gonna stay that way. Um,
Yep.
and then we will see how a really make or break season for Aaron Glenn progresses. This offseason is going to be very critical. Hopefully, you know, you can get some production. You're hoping that these guys, the 3, 4 guys they took at the top of the draft, can produce right away and become starters. I mean, it would not be a good look if they're not right away, you know.
Yeah, and again, right, like, if it's easier for me to say it from my perspective, not being a Jeff fan, but, at the same
It's good to
time,
have the independent perspective
yeah,
here. Yes.
I would say, is as long as they flash, they show they're worthy of a number one pick. There's progression throughout the course of the year. You don't need them to be, you know, Pro Bowl tier caliber. Maybe Bailey's a little bit different. I get that, but, he's going to have his challenges in the early days. So I think as they develop that, that is the piece I would come back to. And, this to me, unfortunately, there are going to be that combination of head coach, quarterback that are just the transition people, and I know it's tough. Like I said, how I feel where it's going to end up for Glenn, and it's tough because Glenn is that that jet player, but these guys are just transition guys to me. These are the people that are just helping to bridge that gap from you being that team that has missed the playoff year after year to being a competitive in the playoffs, potentially having a chance at the Super Bowl with the right quarterback. So again, if I'm in your position, I want to see progression, and I just want to see, us in a position to get, use some of that, to your point, that draft capital come next year, and make the best of it, because again, you're looking at a very strong draft. I think the difference is, no matter how much draft capital you have, whoever's sitting 1 and 2, unless it's like the Raiders, who made their way back into maybe the top 2 picks, just say, if it goes that route, I don't think anybody's giving up the opportunity for Dante Moore or Arch, right? So that is a little bit of, I think, kind of like you're challenging what you're looking at. But yeah,
Wouldn't it be
I
funny if we ended up with Dante Moore next year after he kind of went back to
try to
school
avoid the
to
Jets.
avoid the Jets? That'd be
Yeah,
pretty
no,
funny.
look, would he have been a Jet? Yeah, he would have been the pick this year. But I give him credit because, right, like, there's, whether he understands it or not, or that's how he was looking at it, I would just see there's been a history of Oregon quarterbacks. I mean, who's our best one? Still Joey Harrington, right? There's a history that comes with Oregon quarterbacks, and there's development. He is very, very young,
Yes.
and even if he was looking at the way to be thrown into the Jet situation, it would have been very hard on him. Come this upcoming season, where he's going to develop. He's still playing right? The highest level in college football. And I'm thinking as a division because right now the Big Ten is sitting at the top. He's still going to make millions. I don't know what he's going to make. He's going to probably still
Yeah.
make 5, 6, 7, $8 million this year.
Yeah.
And to make that type of money, to get a chance to develop and do it in a situation where you're more or less protected, I think was the right move. But yeah, the irony that it could land that way next year. But again, I think he will be more prepared, and he would be at that point a better fit for whether it's the Jets or any organization for him to step in because he's just going to be more game day ready once hit September.
100%. Taking the Jets completely out of the equation, that was the right decision to go
Yeah,
back to school. 100%. Regardless if the Jets were even there, like even if the Niners were there waiting to draft him at 2 or a stable organization, I'll say.
yeah.
It's not that
I'll
wasn't the
say
Jets.
and just I know it's a little bit different for Dante Moore in comparison to other players for sure, because his skill, his talent, he's going to be at the top of the draft whenever he decides he wants to do it. My favorite thing about NIL money, it's helping young athletes not make the decision to jump at money so quickly, the NFL money, right? Because now
It's a good
a
point.
lot are going to be in that position to make more dollars in college than if they jumped in and were like a fourth round pick.
Right.
And, and I think I apologize, can't recall who brought it up on one of the broadcasts of, this is going to trend going forward. Like having a ton of picks 4 through 7 is going to look a lot different, you know, going forward than maybe like 5, 10 years ago, where you could still find that person that person you could develop. And not to say you couldn't, but there were going to be people who were so raw in their skill set. At one day, 1 or 2 years into their career, they're going to just pop because it kind of comes together. Where I think now those people who are on that cusp, as they should, stay in college. There's nothing wrong with continuing education, becoming more mature as a human being before a ton of money is like thrown at you and everything that comes with it. So you're not going to be littered with those guys that are willing to take a chance at the draft. They're going to stay behind. And so I think your 4, 5, 6, 7th rounds are going to look so much different going forward. Where, like as a Jaguars fan, great, we have 11 picks. I could care less because after the third round, that's where most of the picks took place. And it's like, okay, we're stacking up on fifth and sixth rounders. And this draft era where we are now, like, what does that mean? I think our likelihood of hitting on something and feeling good about it is really small in terms of opportunity. And I think it's the same for all the teams.
Let's talk about your team real quick in terms of the draft. Your thoughts on Nate Boerkerker, tight end, Texas A&M, the 56th overall pick for the Jags. Do you think he could step in and be a contributor on offense for Trevor right away?
For Trevor, no. For our running game, yes.
Okay.
I think, right, because literally they've drafted an old school tight end, right?
Mm.
Blocking is his thing. I'm not going to say, hey, sure, if he turns into Gronk somehow. I mean, Gronk
You
was a
say old
great.
school. I think Mark Bavaro. That's who I think when you say old school.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't trying to say Bavaro or, excuse me, Gronk being old school. I know Gronk was at the point of attack blocking tremendous. What I'm saying is with Nate, I think he'll have the blocking part. I just don't think he's going to have that dynamic down the field threat part. And yes, to your point, I think he's going to look more like the safety valve for Trevor, like that last second check down, dump it, pick up 5, 6, 7 yards. The guy's an extra blocker more than anything. And that's where I think the heavy criticism came, of that pick for the Jaguars is like, it's like, yo, you could have taken this guy like a round or two later. Why did you feel like with your first pick in the draft at 56, you would reach for this guy? And, I get that, right? We still have holes, right? Like we have holes, right? Our ability to win 13 games this upcoming year, like we did last year, it's going to be a much harder
It's gonna be
climb. We
tough to
lost
replicate. Yeah.
yeah, lost good people in free agency.
Do you feel like this is a sign that they might be trying to become a more efficient running team, take a little more pressure off Trevor?
100% for sure. I think there were parts last year when I watched Trevor, especially towards down the stretch in the regular season. I think is some parts in the playoffs where it did flash. I think you could see he finally looked to be turning a corner as a quarterback. I've always watched, or at least, well, a little bit different going back to Clemens days. I watched Trevor since he was a freshman in college, which I guess all of us did, right? They made a they made a run for the
Yeah, but you were
championship. So like,
particularly excited about him, I remember. Yes.
yeah, I mean, I am a huge. I've been a huge
You were a
Trevor
day
Lawrence
one.
fan.
You were a day one.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I've watched him make amazing throws in the NFL, right? Beautiful balls he will throw down the field, and they just miss, right? Like they're just off. It's just just a little bit too late, a little bit too off the mark because it seemingly I just felt like they're rushed type throws just because of the pressure he's experienced. Because again, through his tenure, average offensive line at best, and I think times where we struggled. But now, and this is my annoyance, and I think you probably have some of my text messages if you go back to the playoff game against the Bills. The fact that Tootin wasn't getting more opportunities to carry the ball against the Bills that day when I think he had like 4 carries for like 50 yards. Like, why are we not trying to do that more? And, maybe this is a little bit of turn and quarter to your point, take some of the pressure off of him. It's going to look a little bit maybe 90s style football, which I would particularly love. I want to see running backs carrying the ball 25 times. I don't
Bell
feel like
count.
we need to. Yeah, right. The good old days when I think we enjoyed football. And I think if you're going to go big up front, and kudos to the Giants on their 10th overall pick, getting our boy
Malagoa.
from the U,
That's right.
a monster of a human being.
Yeah.
But I think,
Did
like,
you see what he
look,
said? I'll die for you. I'll die for you, Jackson Dart.
yeah, our boy from LSU made that same comment, and it was really bad last year. He shouldn't have said that. I was like,
I mean,
probably, hopefully, he's right.
If you're a Giants fan, though, I mean, you gotta love it.
Well, I think
You'll
it's
be
hard not to
pumped
come
up.
back to Will Campbell and be like, he just said this a year ago and he got humiliated every time he was out there and just was a disaster in the playoffs. But with all that being said, I think, with these massive humans up front and with Nate, I mean, let's be more physical. Let's grind the ball and get back to a little bit more of a 90s style, right? Like you look at those people up front. I mean, the way you're going to neutralize the Reeses and Baileys of the world, these massive human beings just running right at them, not allowing them to come off the edge and be disruptive. I think if we're going back to a little bit of that football, I couldn't be any bit happier because again, like it's from a fantasy football perspective, from gambling perspective, sure. Right. Bet the over, got this guy in my league putting up this amount of points. That part has been where I think it's drawn in a lot more people the last 15, 20 years. But I think for someone like yourself and myself, right, like what we grew up on, if it looked a little bit more like late 80s, 90s type football, I think we would appreciate that more considering what we've seen over these last several years. And if it's a return to that, I won't even miss CTN. I know Tootin's going to be fantastic for the Jags. Maybe the NFL's leading rusher this year. I don't know. Maybe.
Hey, stranger things have happened. Quickly to the other side of the ball for your team, they go with another Texas A&M guy, Albert Regis, at defensive tackle, and I think it filled a need there because I felt like you guys were a little thin in the middle there, defense on the defensive line in terms of depth. I think he can provide that and help stopping the run.
Yeah, I think that's been truly, at least through the Trevor Lawrence era, and maybe beyond that, I felt like that's been an Achilles. You can run right at the Jaguars defense, and we have trouble stopping that. And to get anybody that can help us clog the middle at this point, is going to be a needed win. And, in terms of, I feel like sometimes if you want to call it like early mid round, but, and that 2, 3, 4 range, like you can find some of these like run stuffers who can help your defense. And to me, yeah, that was a pick that I was very happy about because again, I've seen us get crushed up the middle with teams wanting to run on us, and we seemingly just can't stop it.
So I think obviously any team compared to the Jets is in better shape. But
Mhm.
you got a coach who looks like he knows what he's doing. He's brought in this modern offense. He's unlocked Trevor to a degree, and you had an opportunistic defense last year. The division is not super strong. We talked about it. Texans, You don't know what you're gonna get with them year to year. CJ Stroud to me is trending down. You
Yeah.
got the
That's
Titans
a
who,
surprise.
yeah,
I mean, that one I was surprised about for sure was the step back CJ took. But yeah, no, you're right. Like if you look at the AFC South and if you look at, I think what our GM tried to do this year, we tried to, I again, like, do I feel comfortable about having so many late round picks in this draft? Not particular, but obviously got to see how it plays out. But at the end of the day, if you look at NFL payrolls, Major League Baseball payroll, generally the ones who are paying all the money are not that great of teams in the end for what you're not getting definitely the value for your dollar. So if there's a little bit of a turn into the corner and how we're going to look and build a team, again, to your point, the coach and the quarterback, some of the talent we have on the outside, hopefully we can figure out the Brian Thomas piece and get him more, on the same page as the rest of the group. Hopefully Travis can stay healthy this year and be a contributor. But let me just say this with AFC South, um, CJ's taking a step back, great defense, but I think that it's concerning where you are with CJ. Trash, right? Daniel Jones, if you're trash, please, like still the Anthony Richardson trade or draft, that's right up there. It's right up there with Jamarcus Russell, right? Like I need people to be a little bit more reasonable about that. Yeah, sure, he definitely way better shape than what Jamarcus was, but it was a trash pick for a trash team.
man,
And
that's
then
going viral.
yeah, yeah. But Titans trash too. It's okay. Like it's all right. They miss Rabel, I'm sure. Like, but clearly, I understand why Rabel is not with the Titans anymore. He's got a proclivity to do some things that don't fit maybe the Southern lifestyle. We'll say.
We can do a whole episode on this because I got a lot to say. Yeah, it does connect back to my football team a little bit in some ways. But yeah. I want to jump to our baseball team. It's been a rough go, man. I have people asking me that maybe aren't Mets fans are like, "What's going on? Like, what's wrong with this team?" And I don't know where to begin a lot of times because it's not just this is wrong. It's a perfect shitstorm of things that have happened going back to the off season when you ripped out the heart of the team, this GM, and these guys who had been here for a while, these homegrown guys. Now you got guys playing out of position. Now Lindor is injured. When are we going to see him again? Bichette's not doing anything. Soto just obviously missed time. He just comes back now. The bullpen can't hold leads. Devin Williams stinks. Did I cover everything?
So wait, can I ask the question? I guess the people who say it's just April, or how do we feel about those and hearing that from them? It's just April. Well,
I know.
teams don't usually drop 12 in a row in April. And yes, it's just April. And I think the thing is, as I probably said a couple weeks ago when we were previewing the season, in April, yes, you cannot win your division, make the playoffs, etc. But you certainly can put yourself in a position where you're basically eliminating yourself. And I think what we've seen here over that 12-game losing streak is this is where we are. We're not a good baseball team. And I think if we were to make the postseason this year, it straight out would be some miracle, some baseball miracle, because this is not a postseason team for that bloated payroll. It's kind of gross. And where I was a couple weeks ago, I know on the Mendoza piece, look, when it comes to Mendoza, I'm not even saying in a bad way that he should be fired. I think it would be doing the guy a favor, which I don't think he's a terrible manager. I think he's in a terrible spot, probably not making sometimes the best decisions because there's really not a lot to pull from based on the roster that was giving this year. And again, last year definitely was a train wreck where I think you could probably point to him a little bit more. But I think you do, if you like Mendy, you do him a favor and you move on from him now. And you have to come to the realization, to your point, as you said, is they ripped out the heart of the team last year. They never addressed the problem. They never addressed the problem. The problem is Lindor and Soto clearly are not making that clubhouse come together. And at the end of the day, if you wanted to be bold and make these moves and treat Pete like the way you're going to treat him and throw out some of the love Mets, you needed to address the problem, right? And right now we have a shortstop on the wrong side of 30 who clearly doesn't like the positioning with the new superstar in town. It's been a problem all along. And I think you're going to be in a position when he comes back, and because there's a good chance we're going to be way behind come the trade deadline, you have to part ways with Lindor by the time you get to the trade line. You have to make the most of his value if he's able to come back and, he comes back before the trade deadline and can play some at least decent baseball. Obviously, I think the return at this point isn't going to be as great as you would hope, but you're in no position other than you got to go with the superstar that's younger and you're paying more to versus Lindor. And I know it sucks to say, but whatever dynamic, whatever team we saw 2 years ago, that locker room, that type of culture, that is completely gone.
It's
And
gone.
right now, we're at a position where we have to take a wrecking ball to this place or this team and really blow it up and start over. I'm all in on our young guys. Let them come up and try to get their at bats. Got
Yeah.
to do that because this is over.
Mauricio's got to play, right? He's got to play every day now.
Yeah, yeah. You have to. You have to see what you have with Mauricio for the rest of the year because to me, he's truly. If there was a quadruple A baseball, he's like quadruple A talent. You send him back to the triple A, he dominates. He comes up, he's got a massive hole in his swing, and you see him just out in front of these pitches. I look at Mauricio, and I can't understand why he's not kind of seeing his full potential when he comes up with the Mets. And I know he's bounced up and down over the last 2 years, but I wouldn't be against trying to get him as much playing time and really see what he has in front of us. Much like some other guys, right? Like, if you want to let Carson kind of ride through,
Yeah.
what is going to be a tough rookie year,
There's
I think you just
there's
got to
no
support him.
reason to send him back down with in terms of where the team is right now. This is valuable time. Give him all the reps, all the experience that you can. And just going back to the manager for a second, we've talked about it. I've liked Mendy. I know you've kind of been on the fence with him. He's obviously trending downward for you. And I totally understand. But I've kind of soured on him a little bit in terms of the fact that I feel like he's too nice. Like a perfect example, and we talked about it before with the Lindor mental mistakes. And then
Yep.
recently with Vientos running through the stop sign at third. Like, is he holding guys accountable, though? Is he holding guys accountable? That's my question. Like, he's in the lineup the next day. You're as a manager, you have an opportunity to set the tone and send a message. And I never see him do things like that.
So, right. Like, I think we're both on the same page. We like him. And to your point, right? Like, again, mid-June last year, for those first couple months, we were playing the best baseball or one of the best teams in baseball at that point. And then we completely crashed.
Feels like a millennium.
Yeah. And, so honestly, I think if you pass or, if you walk away from Mendoza at this point, again, you're doing him a favor, right? He's going to get paid out for the season. He's going to land a bench coach job and he's going to get a crack probably in a different market where he's probably going to find a level of success. I feel confident that will happen. So, by no means like calling for somebody's job, right? Like it's not like the average everyday person,
I know.
who, if they lost their job, it'd be a struggle, week to week to get by. He's not in that position. You're doing him a favor by letting go. And then, again, I think like I said 2 weeks ago, you got to let him go. And you got to get Lindor healthy before this trade deadline, and you have to move on from him. You can't go into next season paying all that money to a 32-year-old shortstop. You just cannot.
You know what
And
sucks
he's
though,
not
pal? His value is never going to be lower coming off the DL. Like that's what
Yeah.
sucks so much.
Yeah.
That's what
And
is terrible.
but there's still a good chance you're going to find that team who hasn't had a lot of success, and is in the hunt, could use that type of player, even if it's like for a short run for a year or two, whatever it may be, from that team's perspective. I mean, right? Like when we traded a PCA away, did we think he would turn out that way? Probably not. As an organization, we can get some of these pieces back. And to me, if you're dumping payroll, you're getting some chance at prospects. We're still the Mets. We could still go and find somebody to throw a ton of money at. I'm not worried about it. You can't, it's not like we could go into a third year with Soto and Lindor and think everything's going to be okay. Like it has to come to an end at some point. The season's done. I don't care. Go do what you have to do to fix this. I don't want to see this coming into spring of 27, us still dealing with this because we're going to get screwed again. And it's nothing more disgusting than looking at a payroll of that size and we're churning out some of the worst baseball there is after the Phillies.
Listen,
I think
I
Phillies take.
I can't disagree with you. Let me throw out a name, Alex Cora. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's like one of those situations where getting a fresh start for somebody like Cora would be good, and he's somebody that has been in a similar type of environment with Boston, right? Because Boston, New York, is going to be very similar in terms of the expectations, the noise from media, from fans. I think he could come in potentially with a mindset of knowing what it is going to take with a fresh start, taking his experience and actually applying it in the right way that helps us. Or we could just wait for Beltran to get his number retired and Hall of Fame and do all that. And actually, no, number retirement is going to come at the end of the year. But what we can do is wait till he gets inducted and then bring him on as the manager.
So, would you sign for? Obviously, we're heading in that direction as it is. Just a completely tank of a season, 70-win season. They clean house. They fire Stearns. They fire Mendoza. They bring in a new GM who brings in his own manager. Because to me, the issue is systemic with Stearns. Like, I feel like he only wants a yes man. Like, that's why I think he would never hire an Alex Cora, right? Like, he
Yeah.
wants a guy that he can control. He can tell who, not that he's making the lineup, Stearns, but I feel like he has a big say in terms of the analytics and all that, blah, blah, blah. So, would you sign up for that? Would you sign up for just a complete awful season if we get everything we want? A new GM, a new manager, they find a good trading partner for Lindor in the offseason when he's like shown he's played the second half of the season and he's healthy and his
Mhm.
value goes back up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bought into that. I mean, I think I've been bought in a lot longer than other people for sure.
Yeah.
Fairly, unfairly, however you want to look at it. But, again, and I think this is I appreciate analytics. I
100%.
appreciate having to look at those pieces
There's a place for
and
it. Yeah.
for sure. But then there's also a place for the nuances of the game
The
itself.
feel for the game.
Yeah, and understanding your players, who do you have, going with your gut. I mean, that's still like, right, that's a part where AI can't touch, right?
No,
You know what I'm saying? Like one day down the
not
road when,
not yet.
it not yet, but with that being said, I think there's something and it's like, I'd rather have the manager who has the experience and the feel for the game versus analytics. And, if we're in a situation where it's maybe, I don't want to say Parcells, like if I make that comparison, but if
Hey,
if you expect him to cook, let him shop for the groceries too, right?
I love it.
And I think there's the differences and why I would be good with it, right? This is not one of our football teams, right? Like this is not you staring at a couple of years of, if Aaron Glenn's not the guy, right? This season's gone, and then next season, who knows? At the end of the day, we could still bounce back. We still have people in our farm system, right? I want to see Clifford this year playing first base. It'd be nice to have somebody again who could actually play first base because I think we had somebody last year who could play first base. We didn't want to pay him.
What was that?
What is that guy's name again? Like he hit he could hit like a bunch of home runs and still play a good solid first base. So I want to see Clifford. I want to see Mauricio get like a full run at this. I'd love to see Bench. I'm good to see, I think Tong by the time we hit the summer, I think he just needs a little bit more development seasoning, much like Nolan did. So, I want to see these guys play for us this year. Again, what we saw 2 years ago, that Lindor is gone for us as an organization, and that's part of it. And I think we just, if you're a Mets fan struggling with that idea of him no longer being here, you're gonna have to accept it because if we want to win and move on, that's part of this. And, I think the people, you got to bring in some, with the young talent and with somebody like Soto, you got to bring in people who have the mental fortitude to kind of help the culture of the locker room. Just because I don't know, like I know Soto, Soto is a great talent. Soto, as I lose my one headphone, is Soto a leader of people? That I don't think so.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of ego, a lot of money, living his best life. Sure. If he wants to be our Manny, I have no problem. Manny was great,
Right.
but Manny couldn't be the leader of any of
Right.
those teams.
Do you think that
So,
could happen organically though? Like you said, if they do ship out Lindor and it becomes Juan's team. I like for what he's making, he should be the leader, right? He should put this team on his back.
No, 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 no. He should not be the leader. I think you would want. Yes, I understand why you would want him to be the leader. I think at the end of the day, not everybody's meant to lead.
Agreed.
Not everybody. Just because somebody has a world of talent doesn't make them doesn't mean they have amazing character and they're able to look at other folks and develop them and bring along the relationships that kind of build that clubhouse feel. So from my end of it, I need him to just put up production because that's what he's getting paid for. And I think, he does need a few people in the locker room around him that he connects with for sure. But that divide between him and Lindor, it's with Sankas. I think when we a couple years down the road, they're going to look back and everybody's going to tell their stories. We're going to see between last year and this year with Sankas is that relationship. Now it's an opportunity for us, I think, to break some of this up, bring in some key veterans who can manage that BS that happens in the locker room, but also let some of these young guys play. And then, we could go spend some money on a better shape roster and not solely based in analytics. At the end of the day, I'm a big believer in life, no matter what you're doing in balance. If you're all analytics or all field, you're not going to get where you need to be. But I'd much rather have that manager who does have a better sense of who's around him and what he should be doing and allow the numbers to supplement making the decisions that help the team win.
Yes, I agree. For the record, pal, I felt this way since the beginning about Soto. Like he's not the leader. He's not that guy. I agree with you. I was just posing the question about could something like that happen organically where he kind of not turns over a new leaf, but once he sees that this is his team, if and when he's ever shipped out, could we see more of a shift of him taking more active role in the leadership? But I have hope that that would happen. I don't think it would happen
But
just
the thing
because, like
is,
you
would
said,
would you want him to though? Like the person who he is, I'm not saying he's a bad guy,
no, I know
but do you think he has the emotional maturity to lead a clubhouse full of grown men?
he hasn't shown it. He hasn't shown
Yeah.
it, but I just wonder if as he matures and gets older, like if that's something that could happen. And that's obviously that's a loaded question. That's a bigger picture thing, but pal,
Well,
yeah,
look at it this
our
way.
baseball team.
Well, well, I'll say this one last thing about that when it comes to Soto, right? What number team is Soto on at this point? At the at this stage in his career, which is
This is
still got
yeah,
years left,
this is
right?
4. This is 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, have you seen a sport where a guy with all that talent bounces around to all these different teams? There's a reason
Yep.
why that person needs to leave and go somewhere else and why he can't build around himself. I'm not going to get into the Jordan LeBron debate over this right now. I'm not going to go that route. I want to, but there are
Yes.
some
No, I
people who
understand.
got all the talent in the world and they're just never going to be the greatest no matter how much they could stat pad, no matter how much they want to put like crowns on their head, these crowns, you got to, anybody talks about Diddy parties.
But speaking of basketball, let's finish up with the Knicks. They
Mhm.
even the series last night with the Hawks 2-2, heading back to Madison Square Garden Tuesday night for Game 5. I think obviously yesterday was a must win for them. Obviously, you can't go
I would
down
say so.
you can't go down 3-1. It was trending in the wrong direction. You heard rumblings about Dolan has been talking to Billy Donovan now, like about potentially taking over if they were to go out in round one. So I think they quelled a lot of that chatter for now. I think you saw Cat step up in a big way yesterday. Brunson, a bit of a scare there with the going back to the locker room for the twisted ankle, which I feel like happens every 10 games for him. He turns that ankle. I think you can take a breather if you're a Knicks fan now. You're coming back home. It's 2-2. I think, the Garden, like we've talked about, it's going to be electric Tuesday night. And I could see them winning the next 2 games and taking this series in 6.
Now, are you saying that as a Knicks fan or, an objective viewer of the game of basketball?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's, you look at the better team, you look at, the Knicks over the course of the season, they were the better team. And I feel like, they have home court advantage. They should win this series. I think now they unlock the blueprint yesterday for how they need to play. I don't think the Hawks they're not a high percentage shooting team. I don't think they can consistently do this for 7 games. So Yeah, that's a little bit both, pal, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I think no, I mean, I was just teasing there, but I mean, in fairness, I think you're right on both fronts. One, I'll say, as somebody who's been victim to lopsided trades, thank you, Knicks organization. Thank you for taking Mister. Has he can you do this when you don't make any shots in the game? I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But no, I would say thank you one more time. That was it. I'm good. Thank you for giving us all that for Bridges. And I would come back to yes, you have home court. These are long series. Once you get to playoff basketball, obviously very different. The team still has the experience over these next three games, and again the home court side of it. So I do think that the Knicks move on, but I just need to maybe circle back to a conversation with you and your boy Chad about basically NBA Finals or bust. I'm just saying you might not get out of the second round. That team ain't beating the Celtics.
How
Just
about the
sorry.
Pistons? The Magic up 2-1 on
Hey,
the number one
hey.
seeded Pistons. That's crazy to me that series is even 2-1 right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, as somebody who lived in Orlando, and you, of course, that lives in Orlando currently, it's nice to see a resurgence in Magic basketball. It's been like 30 years. Penny and Shaq running up down
Man.
the court. Grant with the goggles, Nick Anderson, right? The good old days. Now, again, right? Like you still, I think Detroit is still young,
Yeah,
right? To your point,
and
I
we
think
talked about it, yeah.
playoff basketball, you do have to really, I think, go through your bumps and bruises. To me, a little bit different than hockey. Not that you don't have to do that to advance, I think, year after year in the playoffs for NHL, but, if you get a goalie standing on their head, sometimes really that's mostly what you need to advance, where in basketball it is a little bit different. And I think when you lean in some of these young guys and they get tested, it'd be interesting to see how Detroit responds going forward. But at this point, I guess with Tatum back, feels like the Celtics, could be your favorites, right? To get back and represent the East.
It does
I
feel
know you
like it.
love that.
I think,
I know you
yeah.
love.
I think if the Knicks can get out of this and the Celtics can get out of it because they're 2-1 as well, yeah, I think that would be a really entertaining 7-game series, New York and Boston. Maybe kind of old school style
Yeah, I
in terms
mean,
of the intensity, you know?
yes, I don't think we'll ever see the
No,
physicality of
no.
the '80s and '90s basketball. Again, it's a little bit of a different era. Again, right? Like you gotta figure out what you have. Maybe with Brunson, sometimes if you're just getting beat badly on defense, faking that ankle injury kind of helps you save some face. A lot easier to sit in front of the media and talk about that if you're showing a little bit of ankle weakness as you get beat. But yeah, no, I think where you are, I still think the Knicks come out of it. I would say it's probably more of a 7-game series because I do think the Hawks would get one more on their home court. Although, I mean,
We all said 5. Now it's just
yes,
crazy. It's crazy.
yeah, no, but
I think you were
but
scared to say 7, honestly, when you were
no,
with
no. I think you might be right now. 6 games might be it because was it me or did the Knicks have some like a post game meal from like Magic City? They got some of them wings. If that's the case, then Knicks might win out and not lose another game for this postseason.
I saw that. I saw that. Well, pal, yeah, it was a lot of
Awesome.
fun.
I love it.
Listen,
Yeah.
guys, if you're not following us on Instagram at the UQ podcast, and you can catch full episodes on Apple and Spotify. For Brendan, Pat, we will catch you guys next time on the Unqualified podcast. Talk to you soon.